Well, we come to Lazarus, and needless to say, he'd been in the grave 4 days. The fourth state is the creation, and the creation is this difficult material place of good and evil, of this sort of mixture of life and death. And relative to heaven, of course, he is indeed asleep. And I find it an interesting point that it's in verse 17 again. 17 is a sort of key number. Well, there are 3 indications, 3 testimonies really, the 2 Marys and Martha, and then the people generally. Could not this man have saved him? And it's linked directly with, for this reason, they sought to kill him. Because he did the miracles. And he would get such a following, is the way it's presented. Of course, from the story point of view, the miracle also says that, goodness, if he can save others, he can certainly save himself. So what is the crucifixion about? The 3 miracles of healing are all on Jewish people, as is, of course, the raising of Lazarus. So there are 4 personal miracles in this way. So some are noble, but some are impotent. Some are specifically cited as being loved. All 7 miracles are specifically for Jews. Although you could say that the 5,000 included whoever was in the crowd, of course, because they all get fed. It would seem that the miraculous is what's needed to turn for those that are in the Jewish religion, so to speak. Whereas others seem to receive it, as in Samaria, without noted miracles. The story is then consistent with the Jewish people being more astray than the Gentile world. Hence, this Jesus story is especially for the Jewish people, for John's Gospel. And I'm tempted to say written by at least a Hellenistic Gnostic. The Jews need signs and wonders, but the Gentile only has to meet with Jesus to be persuaded. Whereas from the Christian religion point of view, Jesus was sent to the Jewish people because they were especially favored, as in the Old Testament view, and the gift of miracles was especially for them. Whereas from the writer of John's point of view, the Hellenist has no trouble embracing the Jesus story. It's just another version of his own. Of course, the good guys being from any nation, whereas the bad guys in the story are of specifically the Jews, gives a quasi-Christian validation to hate those that are following specifically the Jewish faith rather than the Christian one. So Scripture is bent in its interpretation to suit those of evil intent in the history of Christianity. I should mention that I find the 4 miracles of healing, 3 of healing and 1 of recovery from death, Lazarus, give me a sense of the ambiguity of the way miracles of healing are taken to be. Things like these 4 are extremely personal, of the body, which is the material creation, the place of good and evil. And the miracles can give a sealing validation to people's faith and trust, but equally can be seen as fantasy and good reason for binning the rest of the story because it's all make-believe. And this is the root problem with the Christian faith. Whereas the Jesus story, as seen as part of the mystery religion, the ancient mystery religion, dismissed by Christianity as cults, of course, relied on your experience of conversion, not God the miraculous coming to you, but you drawing nigh to God through an experience in the temple. You went through an initiation which transformed your view of life. Now we still see that basis in Christianity. A great chunk of Christianity believes in conversion, being born again, but it's reliant on trusting what Jesus has done, as in the great sacrifice type theology that Christianity holds. Still, just like Canaanite religion. Barbarous views compared to the Greeks and Egyptians, of course. The follower of the mystery cult has an encounter with God. The Christian in the Jewish view is relying on God doing a miracle in their material life. Water into wine, or healing of the body, or raising of the body from the dead, stopping the storms, etc. I think of my own conversion. I had an encounter with God. It wasn't that I was healed, or, I walked across the lake instead of round it at the university. I just was overcome by, my goodness, I want God to exist. I've never wanted him to exist before. And I was in a state of joy. Whatever, it's the conviction of the nearness of God, as opposed to being an observer of God doing something. Even if he's healed me, you see, in some sense I'm an observer. But my conviction is trying to be anchored upon something I've wanted that's put right. Whereas a person converted to the mystery cult has found someone wonderful, and it's their person that's become everything to you. The person of God. Not his power, not his miracles, but who he is. And it's that which the Jesus story is giving. And that is not what Christianity found in the story, because it came with its Old Testament precondition of mind. The Jesus story is not Judaism. It's Hellenistic mystery cult, which has come from the ancient Egyptian religion, right back to the days of Pythagoras. It is, if you like, the zenith of the personalization of God. One God at that, that developed in that 2,000 to 4,000, or put it the other way around, 4,000 to 2,000 years ago. An understanding of God who loves us. In the words of the Gospel, he's our dad. Yours and mine. A very good dad. And yes, all-powerful. But the all-powerful without being all-loving would be all-frightening. And in many ways, the Christian God has been seen as that, a God of judgment. Just what you'd expect from an Old Testament God of war. Well, you must have picked up, I don't know about must have, but still, from the Gospels that there's something slightly suspect about miracles. They're not the ideal. You know, Thomas, at some other point, isn't he? He's told, blessed are those that believed without having seen. In other words, perhaps it means blessed are those that are drawn to this because this is what they value, not because they're confronted with some bewildering anomaly that just has to be accepted, without understanding. In other words, it's not by force, but by love and appreciation that we come into heaven. Violent take it by force. In terms of Pilgrim's Progress, they're the ones that bump over the wall. They've come in some other way. But we're in. Surely that's what counts. Violence is not something normally commended by the Gospels. Miracles are a violent assault on our imagination. Love is not. Not a catapulting into, but a steady drawing upon us. Because we found this is what we truly value. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. You see, it's loving God that saves you. Knowing in your whole being that this is what you truly value. That's the key to heaven. How do you achieve this? Not by the stark miracles. Even 7 miracles, including a resurrection from the dead for Lazarus, doesn't do it because it's out there in the physical. But you are not physical. You are spiritual. And when your spirit is in harmony with God, because you know in your heart this is who you love, you are saved. You have life eternal, for you know God. You are the way. It's loving God. It's not obedience, it's not miracles, it's not healings. It's loving God. Hence the first principle, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind and strength. Bless you. And you are blessed. You see, your resurrection turns on a personal meeting of God through overwhelming desire in you for who he is, because that's what you value. And that's because you are a child of God. And you transcend the material creation. It's 5, the grace. You are utterly embraced in the grace of God, our Heavenly Dad. In terms of the week, it's the 7th day. It's utter rest. It's the transcendence. You are matured in heaven. The creation has done its stuff. It's changed your values. It's made you, it's not actually changed them, it's made you realize what you truly value, and that is our Dad. Thank you, Dad. So you need to be mindful of all that is good and lovely. And when you are not, well, you will suffer all sorts of assaults of the creation, of the world of good and evil, to highlight the difference between good and bad, and that you might know what you truly value and what you revile, all that's death and destruction. If you want an easy life here, focus on whatsoever is good and lovely. Because if you don't, then you go through great contrasts to help you focus your mind, so that you become very clear. But that's the hard way. you can voluntarily simply search out all that's good and lovely, and the familiarization with such will transform your heart. You'll know you love God, and that He loves you. In fact, that you love God because He loves you. Happiness compared to sorrow is a lovely way to come to know God. You can come through loss, those that mourn, sorrow. But it's a very sorrowful way to come. You don't have to come that way. You can come through joy. How do you receive the joy? Focus on whatever soever is good and lovely. Your joy will increase. You'll be overcome by gratitude, which draws you to God like a magnet. The strongest of magnets. Gravity, in fact. Drawn by His vast grace and loving kindness. We love Him, you see, because He first loved us. Ah, bless you. Thank you, Dad.